Start your morning. The Warriors announced Steph Curry will be out at least another week with that sprained ankle. Golden State plays 4 games during that span, including 1 on the road against the Spurs. CeCe, how big of a deal is this?
It's a big deal. Anytime Steph has problems with his ankle, if they had any of the other big four had ankle problems, I wouldn't be in concern because they don't have the history of Steph. Now, how important is the #1 seed to them? It's not going to be that important, so he has the adequate time to be able to get back in the lineup.
Listen, this is a good stretch of time to miss if such a thing exists. They play the Lakers, Kings, and Suns before they play the Spurs in the final game of this 4-game stretch. But to me, this basically puts an end on the Warriors competing for the 1 seed. They already needed to make up 3 games on Houston in the final 15. I don't think they will be able to do that, especially with Steph Curry missing at least a third of those final 15 games.
All right, moving on. The Jets re-signed soon-to-be 39-year-old Josh McCown to a 1-year, $10 million deal, and they'll reportedly sign Teddy Bridgewater from Minnesota also to a 1-year deal. CeCe, what do you make of the Jets' quarterback plans?
I like the fact that they signed Teddy Bridgewater. I thought that was really smart. They got him 1 year. It's a good, after a guy that's missed 2 years, basically, that's a good contract. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year, so his upside, I believe, is higher than a lot of the other quarterbacks in free agency that you're looking at as a potential starter. But Josh McCown, I don't understand that. They were bragging 3 days ago how they had $100 million more cap space than anyone else. Man, you can come by my apartment. I got all kinds of garbage out by the curb. You can pick it up. You don't have to pay me no $10 million for it. So to sign a 39-year-old back up to a $10 million contract, Jets, this is the best that you can do.
Especially when you now know you have Teddy Bridgewater. It's not like you were going to be without, Bryce Petty or Christian Hackenberg are going to be starting for us. What was the market for Josh McCown? Who are you competing up against? When you offered him 10, who's the team that was offering him 9? Who's the team that was offering him 8?
I got an offer for him. He can play in my basketball league. We got a playoff game tonight. I need a big dude.
So I like that. I agree with CeCe. I like the Bridgewater signing. I don't understand the McCown.
I'll be shocked if Teddy doesn't get hurt that he makes the team.
You'd be shocked if McCown makes the team.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, if Teddy doesn't get hurt, I'd be shocked if he makes the team.
And finally, Malcolm Butler went from being benched in the Super Bowl to a massive payday. According to reports, the cornerback agreed to a 5-year, $61 million deal with the Titans, including $30 million of guaranteed money. Nick, what was your reaction to this deal?
Vindication for Malcolm Butler. Total and complete vindication about whatever the hell happened the week leading up to the Super Bowl and the day of the Super Bowl. He was signed by a team that is coached by a former New England Patriot in Mike Vrabel. The Titans made 2 moves yesterday, 2 major moves, adding Deion Lewis, adding Malcolm Butler. They are clearly trying to import some of the Patriot way to Tennessee. You wouldn't do that if you thought he was a problem, if you believed some of the rumors swirling around him involving marijuana or missing curfew leading into the Super Bowl. And it's a vindication for Malcolm Butler because he got all his money. The contract he wanted that the Patriots gave to Stephon Gilmore a year ago, he got a richer contract than that a year later. So for all those reasons, I'm happy for Malcolm Butler, who I thought was unfairly maligned by some members of the media and by his head coach during and after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I knew the rumors couldn't be true because he wouldn't have been dressed for the game. So I don't even like to acknowledge what people were saying. But it speaks to his character when someone from New England goes out and gives him $60 million. Now, is he worth that as a corner? To me, I believe to try to import the type of culture that Vrabel's trying to bring to Tennessee, given the division that they're in, with Indianapolis, with Frank Wright and Luck coming back, Houston, we know what they're doing with Deshaun, J.J. Watt coming back, Jacksonville, I believe, is here to stay. They're in the AFC South, so that competition, I believe that culture, it's going to be expensive. But for Malcolm Butler, who came into this league as a street free agent, that means anyone in the league could have gotten him. Wasn't drafted by anyone. New England, he built his career there based on hard work. He's a very good man-to-man player, so I'm very, very happy for him in his payday.
And for Malcolm Butler, we can finally put the black mark of whatever happened unless you're behind him and then go out and do the one thing he wanted.
You can put that black mark right up under Bill Belichick's eye.
Okay.
That's where you can put that, right up under his eye, because he's taking an L for this one.
We were talking about Tom versus time earlier. To a degree, there was a Butler versus Belichick that I don't think Butler wanted to be in that fight, but he was. And CeCe, you said earlier, there's now a winner. Like we now know in that battle who the winner ended up being, and the proof's in the dollars and the team he went to for Malcolm Butler.
All right, moving on to the NFL draft. Today is Pro Day at Oklahoma, and while the Sooners will be showcasing 19 players with NFL aspirations, the man at the center of it all will be Baker Mayfield. And who better to talk about all of this than Fox College football and NFL draft analyst Joel Klatt. Joel, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah, you bet. Good day here, huh?
Yeah, well, so let's start with where you are right now. You're at Baker Mayfield's Pro Day there. What do you expect to see from him this afternoon?
A lot of what we saw for the last 3 years, which is a guy that is supremely talented, in particular with his touch, his accuracy, a guy that's supremely confident. And that's what we've been seeing on the college football field, and that's exactly what I expect to see today and then in the future in the National Football League. This is a guy that is a winner. He walked on twice, once at Texas Tech, then at Oklahoma. He believes in himself. You talk about Malcolm Butler going from street free agent to $30 million guaranteed. You know, Baker Mayfield's like the college version of that. He bet on himself. He could have gone to a lesser school and walked on, or gotten a scholarship out of high school. He bet on himself. He walked on at Texas Tech, then he walked on at Oklahoma, Heisman Trophy winner. And today I think he's going to prove to a lot of people that he's got a better arm than people believe. If you go back to the tape, and I know that's the old, right, go back to the tape. But if you watch that Texas game over again, he flips his hips and throws the ball 61 yards in the air for a touchdown. That guy has a way stronger arm than people believe. He's not just some Johnny Manziel character in the backfield. He's got a strong arm, and he's very accurate with it.
All right, Joel, you have him right now going number 7 in your mock draft. What's the most important thing he can show today to keep his draft stock as high as it is, or to maybe improve it to where he's discussed as maybe the first, if not the second or third quarterback taken?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on the way that he throws and how many incompletions and how many times the ball hits the ground, so on and so forth. But I actually think that the more important part of his day is going to be the interviews with the teams. And when he gets on the whiteboard, as CC knows, you know, for a guy like Baker Mayfield, when the red flags and the questions are more surrounding him off the field than they are on the field, it's all about the interview process. You know, how does he come across to some of these GMs and decision makers and the head coaches? Is he the type of personality that they want in their locker room? I think that's the biggest hurdle for Mayfield. We've already seen a guy like Drew Brees, who's going to pass Peyton Manning and Brett Favre for the all-time leading passer in NFL history this year. At the height he's at, that's Baker Mayfield's height. So I don't think the height is a big deal. I don't think his arm strength or his touch or his accuracy is a big deal. All those questions have been answered, but it's that personality. And that exam is going to take place in some of the interviews that he has today after he throws.
Joe, let's move over to some of the other quarterbacks in this year's draft. I know in your mock draft is coming out today. I think Joel Klatt, number 2 mock draft. Wink, wink. You have Sam Darnold going number 1. Is he still clearly the number 1 guy in your book as we speak?
He is. You know, he's got the least amount of question marks surrounding him. Now, there are some in the league, and you can actually throw me in this camp as well, that question why he didn't throw at the combine. Because for me, it's like you got to compete. You know, CC, I know you're going to know all about this schoolyard, backyard, wherever it is, man, let's go. Give me the ball. Let's rock. Let's spin it. Let's go out there and throw it. So a lot of people were a little bit concerned about the fact that he shied away from the competition at the combine. But I still think Darnold's the guy at number 1. If you look at what he meant to USC over the last 2 years, I don't know if there was a more impactful player in college football than Sam Darnold. USC wasn't even close, to competitive against Alabama 2 years ago. All of a sudden, he gets inserted into the lineup. They go and they win the Rose Bowl this year. They ended that Pac-12 championship drought. They go and win the Pac-12 championship. And he did not have a lot around him. Plus, the offense was stagnant and very predictable. So I like Darnold at number 1, and I think Cleveland would do very well if they took him.
Joel, let's look at number 2. All right, so you have the Giants passing on a quarterback, going with running back Saquon Barkley. Yeah. Is it because Saquon is just too good to give up, or is it because they are so committed to Eli that they're good for the next year or two?
Yeah, good question. I think that's probably a bit of both. I think more so the value with Barkley is just so much greater than some of these other quarterbacks that you could potentially draft, because all the rest of the quarterbacks, save for Darnold, have major question marks. Rosen's attitude, Mayfield off the field, the running away from the police. Josh Allen, his accuracy, his completion percentage, and his competition level in college. Those are major question marks for NFL organizations. So why not take more of the sure thing? I think Saquon Barkley, while he might not be a 30-carry-a-game guy, he's a guy that can change the game on any given play. And those are rare commodities. This is a guy that can catch it out of the backfield. He surely has the rare burst and balance and speed to take it the distance. He can affect the special teams game as well. He's durable. I think Barkley is a great fit for the Giants in number 2. And if you're trying to extend the career of Eli Manning, you got to give him offensive weapons that allow him to get the ball out of his hands quickly. See, this is much different than getting some outside threat that you've got to hold the ball for 3 and 4 seconds to get the ball to down the field. This is a guy that you can get the ball out of your hands under a second and a half. And that's exactly what New York needs. And I think that's what Eli needs as well.
All right, Joel, you've got the second quarterback being taken as Josh Allen. You got to explain the Josh Allen love to me. He didn't play against great competition. He didn't have great numbers. He didn't improve from his second year to his third year. I know that he's big, strapping, big hands. I get that part of it. What do you see in Josh Allen that makes you believe he can be a highly successful NFL quarterback?
It's really not my evaluation. I'm going to hedge here a little bit. If I was the decision maker, he would be the 4th or 5th quarterback on my board. I have him at that spot in my mock draft because of the conversations I've had with some of the teams. So this is more of a projection for the draft than it is my evaluation. And Nick, it's because I think Arizona loves the guy. He's very much in the Carson Palmer mold. If you talk to the guys that do love him, what they talk about is he played for the same coach that Carson Wentz did. Carson Wentz came and set the league on fire. The guy has a howitzer attached to his right arm. I mean, all of those things are true, certainly, but I'm a little skittish on Josh Allen, to tell you the truth. The competition level thing scares me a lot. I know guys have come from lesser levels and gone to succeed in the National Football League, but you've got to be able to throw with touch and with accuracy, and those are two things that he has not shown the ability to do. You can't just go out there and be Steven Strasburg and throw fastballs all day. I mean, that doesn't work in the game of football, in particular in the modern game of football, which is played more so inside the numbers than it is outside the numbers, in particular with some of those RPO concepts are becoming much more prevalent. So Arizona loves him. I think that they're going to go up and get him. If it was me, I would not do that.
Are you concerned, or are you off the quarterback because the Jets acquired 2? I know the security blanket of Josh McCown. Ooh, that's going to set your franchise up for a lifetime of success. I know you're probably intrigued by Teddy Bridgewater, but Josh Rosen going to them at number 6, do you still see that happening?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Obviously, there's not a lot of long-term, solidifying quarterback moves with McCown and Bridgewater. 1-year deal for Bridgewater. McCown comes in. I mean, by the way, he would do really well in your pickup game. Dude is way more athletic than you think. I was actually with him in Detroit in training camp in 06.
That's valuable information.
You, man, the dude is athletic. There's no doubt about it.
And he's going to get better when he gets 40. So you have to wait until he gets 40.
He's got a sneaky fade away from the baseline, too, CC. That's where you got to hit him down on the block. He's got this nice little fade away. He must have buried Dan Orlovsky. We played pickup. It was me and John Kitna, Dan Orlovsky, and Josh McCown. And he owned Dan Orlovsky. I mean, owned him with that fadeaway. I know we're not talking about Josh McCown, but the Rosen factor for the Jets. I think long-term, the Jets need an answer at quarterback, right? I don't think any of the guys that they brought in. Now, maybe it's Bridgewater, but that health is a serious question. And for me, the value with Rosen is through the charts at that pick. I think he's the best pure prospect at quarterback in the draft, but there's attitude questions with Josh Rosen. If he can answer those, I think he's in a good spot in New York. If there's one market that you can be interested in multiple things outside of football and still get away with it, it's New York because it's there, and I don't think the fan base would crush you for it. So I think Rosen actually fits pretty well with New York, and they need a long-term answer. Although that fadeaway, man, I'm telling you, he was sweet with that fadeaway.
They need a lot of answers, Joel. The feel-good story of the Combine has to be Shaq Griffin from UCF, who plays with one hand. You were at the Combine a few weeks ago. Where do you see him right now?
I would not be shocked if he gets taken in the second round. maybe in the back half of the second round, he was certainly the talk of the town, if you will. And when you talk with guys, they loved his interview. Obviously, the film is outstanding. Remember, this guy was a Conference Defensive Player of the Year. So it's not just like, oh, who is this guy that ran so fast and put up, whatever, 20-plus reps on the bench without a hand. I mean, he is a really good football player, and I think that the biggest point, I know that you've probably heard this elsewhere, but every decision maker in the NFL that I talk to comes back to this point. This was not a recent injury that he's having to learn to deal with on the fly. He hasn't had this hand going all the way back, prior to his 10th birthday. So his entire career on the football field has been played with only one hand. That means he understands how to get around some of the issues that presents. He's clearly a good football player. He clearly tested well. His interviews are great. I think that Griffin gets taken in the back end of the second round, and good on him. I mean, this was a guy that didn't even have a combine invite, and I think he's going to be a second-round player. And candidly, the team that takes him is going to get a great player. I would not be shocked if we see him in a Pro Bowl in his first 5 seasons in the National Football League.
It's great.
Wow,
It's great to hear.
story.
It's a great story.
Joel, thanks so much for getting up early for us. Much appreciated. Enjoy your day over there.
Thank you, Joel.
It was too early. I couldn't shave, so I'm
That's
sorry
good.
about that. But,
Hey, some of us really appreciate it. Coming up, did Kirk Cousins make the right call? Signing in Minnesota. That's next on First Things First.